a friend invited me to meet this man named Franklin Jones, which was his family name. And he said, he's a good man, he has good energy. I had nothing else to do, so I said, sure, I'll go meet somebody, whatever that means, a man with, nice man with good energy. And so we went to this place on Melrose Avenue in Los Angeles, California. There was a store there that was being renovated, and so people were painting on the ceiling and painting the walls, and fresh paint was in the air. And I was talking to my friend in the middle of the room, and the front door opened, and this man walked in. It was Franklin Jones. The moment I saw him, my entire being was overwhelmed by an overwhelming feeling of happiness. I felt like I was just seeing my best friend that I hadn't seen for 40 years. It was overwhelming joy. I couldn't make any sense out of it at all, so I watched him as he moved around the room and as he talked to other people. And I tried to figure out, how do I know him? Why do I feel so happy to see him? In growth and practice, I understood that he's enlightened. An enlightened being has no defenses, no protections. He's open. He's vulnerable. And what does it feel like if you're completely open and vulnerable? The true state of existence comes out. Love, bliss. He came into the room radiating love from his own being. My heart felt it, and love radiated through my being, and I felt overwhelming happiness. But because I didn't understand it at the time, I tried to figure what's the logical argument why I feel so happy. I know him somehow. Right? So I watched him in the room until I got it. I think we went to high school together 15 years ago, and I was waiting for the opportunity to ask him. We went to Brighton High in Boston, Massachusetts 15 years ago, right? Opportunity didn't arise. I was introduced to him, and as soon as I was introduced, I wanted to say, remember me from Brighton High? Because that's the mentality I had in the moment. But he instead said to me, what are you doing? And he spoke with a depth of feeling. He spoke in this kind of, like he was interested, truly interested. It didn't sound like he wanted to know why I was standing there. He wanted to know about my life. So I told him about my life a little bit, and he said, that's interesting. What are you doing tonight? There's a few of us are going to get together because there's no formal ashram yet, and you should come. I said, thank you. And he walked off to talk to some other people, and he left. I went to my friend's place and had some dinner with my friends. And went to the meeting that night, and there were 7 other friends there. I did not call those early February of 1972 his friends. 7 others between my friend I visited and his wife, myself. There were 10 of us to begin with at that meeting. He came and he took his seat, and I'm going to figure, now I can figure out why I'm so happy to see you. Why my whole being is happy. Not just cool, right? And I figured it would be a social occasion, because all I knew was this is a guy that had good energy. He was a nice man. That's how I was introduced to him. First thing he said was, have you ever noticed that everyone is always seeking happiness? Strange way to start a social hangout conversation, but I went, I don't know, what do you mean by that? He goes, have you noticed that you are always seeking happiness? And of course he's saying it to everybody. He said, have you made life changes? Like a job, a relationship, a location where you lived? Did you change those things sometime in your life because they weren't as full as they were when you first started them? They changed, so you wanted to find happiness again. You go, well, my answer was, of course, yes, everybody does that, and I've done all of those, right? He goes, well, you missed the lesson. What lesson? The lesson is that the truth of existence, the prior state of reality, the feeling of being, is already happy. It is love bliss. But you don't recognize that, so you go seek it. And when it's not happening here, you look for it someplace else. So you're a seeker for happiness. I had never heard anyone speaking like that before. He was talking to me about my search for happiness. My whole life has been searching for that happiness. But then he said, look at the way you dress. Look at what you do. Look at where you eat. Look at the entertainments you like to do. You do everything for enjoyment, for pleasure. It's a degree of happiness. You do get happiness from things. Right? But did you ever notice that the happiness that you get doesn't last? It changes. And I'm feeling, excuse me, yeah, it doesn't last. But that's how it is. That's what life's all about. And he goes, you're going to find happiness in things. It doesn't last in things because happiness is not in things. You get a glimpse of happiness in things, but it's your true state that you're actually getting a glimpse of. Right? It's calling you to turn back into your feeling of being, into your vulnerable place of open-hearted vulnerability, to feel the truth of reality, the God condition of reality. Because that's where happiness is. It's not in objects. So he said, so happiness is not in things. And happiness is in the prior state of reality. So I figured, well, how do I get to that? Because I agree with what you're saying completely, but how do I get that? He said, well, that's where grace comes into play. Divine grace allows me, an enlightened being, to appear in bodily human form, physical form, familiar form, and reveal my free state to you. And my free state attracts you beyond your contracted, limited state, your seeking state. And as you're attracted to me, I reveal my free state to you. And he talked about a few other things. And then he kind of left the room. I was overwhelmed. Everything he was saying made so much sense. He was answering my questions about where happiness is, why seeking of it doesn't work, and how his state is transmitting that happiness. I immediately turned to everybody in the room and I said, everybody, I really apologize for tonight. He said, why? I said, everything he was saying was so personal, so intimate. I never heard anybody speak that clearly. And he was talking directly to me. As soon as he wanted to turn his eyes to someplace else, I held his eyes back. I didn't want him to leave me at all because it was so intimate, answering my heart's questions. Yeah? And they all started laughing. They said, that's how it is with all of us. They said, there's something that's profoundly strange around being around Franklin Jones. He touches you at a depth. He could go out and touch every single being on the planet and never leave you. And that's why we're here. And that's why we want to find out more about him. And that's part of his gift of a depthful communication of the truth of existence, which is our own state, not just a separate state. Loveless, divine reality. And no separation in it. And that was the first night. That was the beginning. After all these years, almost 45 years almost now, in Adida's company, I've always recorded all the important sacred occasions, sacred events that happened. Yeah? And I ended up writing them in a book. Because they're so important, they're so significant, they're heart-opening, they're answers to people's questions about where is God, what is truth, what is reality, where is happiness? Answers directly. So I knew I had to get a book and pass on these gifts. Right? 118 stories in the book. And then I started considering, what will the title be? A lot of titles were considered by many of my friends and all that until they came down to At the Feet of the Spiritual Master. Because that's where I as a devotee was, in devotional recognition of his free state, submitted to his freedom through devotion. I'm at his feet. And that's how these stories are felt, and that's how these stories are brought to me. And the subtitle for the book is Stories from My Life with Avatar Adida Samraj. The book is in process. It will come out soon. But in the meantime, I felt people have to hear these stories. And I want to tell them directly, face to face. So I traveled this last year all over the world and actually did tell lots of these stories all over the world. And then I got a recording because I felt everybody can't come into the rooms where I was, so how do I get all the rest of the people? So we got a recording now. It has 16 stories in it. And there's an explanation of the book and the CD on my Facebook page. And if people are interested, go to my Facebook page. It's Gerald Sheinfeld. All the information is there on how to get in touch with the download of the CDs and how to find out more about the book is all there.